If you didn't think there was already enough buzz around the Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk took it to another level with his appearance on College Gameday.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, September 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Today, we are going to recap a little bit of the preseason games that the Florida Panthers played on Sunday afternoon going into the evening. We are also going to discuss what Jeff Petry and Luke Kunin, a few newcomers for the Panthers, had to say when they spoke to the media on Friday. And also, we are going to be joined by Alex Donno of Locked On Canes and part of the Florida Panthers Radio Network in segment number 3 to discuss Matthew Tkachuk's appearance on College Gameday, which had me truly excited seeing Matthew Tkachuk there. But let's talk about both of these games between the Florida Panthers and the Nashville Predators. The game 1 for the Panthers, they lose by a final score of 5-0. And then game number 2, the Florida Panthers lose to the Predators by a score of 5-3, made it close at the end, got 2 goals in the third period to make it a 1-goal game. And then the Predators capped it off with an empty netter at the end to ice the game there. So just the mindset going into these preseason games for the Panthers was just to get the young guys going and get them to experience some of the NHL action, which a lot of them are experiencing for the first time. And honestly, the Predators broadcast, which the first broadcast, which was the radio guys for the Predators, I was quite unimpressed by them because they just said all their last names and really didn't give much info about each player on the broadcast, which, yeah, I know that I know some of the information on the players, but at least do a little bit of it. The Nightcap crew, which was a different crew for them, they actually were more detailed when it came to the players for the Panthers. So that's a little bit of my my criticisms on the broadcast that we got there. But hey, it's the only broadcast that we'll see this year where it's from a Jumbotron feed and the broadcasters from a different team. So the rest of the way we will have Script Sports broadcasting for you guys there. But Paul Maurice did say that they're about the gaps between amateur hockey and pro, and then minor league to pro, that these guys are going to have to experience. And he also discussed on Saturday, discussing how the fact that they are not beaten down like what Paul Maurice does to the main group, as far as the long board battles and then skating a whole lap and then bag skating the guys all over, that they should have a pretty good jump, which the Panthers, especially in the first game, they got quite a bit of a jump and got a good amount of scoring chances, but then it really truly starting to fade after that. The Panthers really did get more of their power play opportunities, but the power play one that they had in game number 1 really had a hard time getting the zone. They were forced to the outside, and yeah, that's going to come with the inexperience of the Panthers that they put in here versus the Predators, who are mostly have a good amount of veteran guys on their roster. Yeah, that's a team on the opposite side that missed the playoffs and are trying to get back to that point after spending big in the last offseason for them. But a few guys that I was really quite impressed with, which I had a few criticisms of Eamon Powell during the rookie showcase, but I thought he was better with calculating his pinches and didn't leave his goalie out to dry in the first game. So I thought that was a good adjustment that he's made. I did think that Shamar Moses, recently drafted Florida Panther, I thought that he looked a little bit lost out there as he was trying to get the puck out of the zone on his own, and then right when the Predators closed the gap on him, there was a good amount of support around him, but he wasn't looking for that teammate, that defenseman behind him, so that they could do a flip out and have the Predators reset out in the neutral zone. So I thought and I saw that more than once happen to Shamar Moses in the first game of the doubleheader. Kirill Grishimchuk has a little bit of work to do when it comes to just moving east-west in his own cage, and also with his overall vision, which he did get beat on a wraparound goal by former Panther Eric Haula. And also in game number one, Ludvig Jansson, although it says the -3 for his stat line there, which again, plus minus isn't the be all end all for players. I thought that he still found a way to navigate in his own end pretty well. I thought he protected the puck along the walls decently in this one. So I'm still very high on someone like Ludvig Jansson in his development, and he's gonna get a full year in Charlotte to prove that he could possibly not necessarily come right away next season, but he could be a later call up next season for the Panthers. Game 2, it was an opportunity for the Panthers to see Danilo Tarasov for the first time in a game setting after the story about talking about hometown Sergei Bobrovsky, him from St. Petersburg, Russia. But for the Panthers here, that Danilo Tarasov, I thought he was looking through screens pretty well, getting to the butterfly very quick, which there were times where Nashville, when they were working around the zone, which most of Nashville's veteran players were playing in that game too. Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, Roman Josi is playing his first game since he got concussed on the hit by Sam Bennett back on February 25th, which that game was special for one Panthers prospect at the time, Justin Sordiff, as he got the call up there, as that was the game where Eetu Luostarinen couldn't play because of the birth of his child. So memories in that building. But for the Panthers there, and Danilo Tarasov, I thought that he was, even though he gave up 3 goals against in the second game of the doubleheader, I thought that his vision was actually quite well, and that he was adjusting left to right for a 6'5" goaltender. I thought that he was working well on his edges in the crease to move and get to the other post, get into RVH quickly to take away the short side opportunities. I thought so. I thought that he was pretty decent there. He did give up the 2 goals on the power play, which, I mean, there were especially on the Stamkos goal, no chance to stop that, as it was those quick one-touch passes, and then the net was just open. So that is that for the Panthers, just like the regular season, you're hoping that the Panthers do limit the opportunities for their opposition to get on the power play. But just because you put different players and you say that this is the Panthers style of hockey that they want to play doesn't necessarily mean that it just gets back to the point of if they were to have their regular roster player. And then you see kind of trends and you try to guess what the coaching staff is trying to do based on who is playing with who. And Jack Devine being on a line with Jack Studnicka for the second game of the doubleheader, and Noah Gregor being on the same line there. 2 experienced guys. Studnicka spent all of last season in the AHL with the Ontario Reign, the LA Kings affiliate, and you see the experience really showing with how he was able to win his board battles, and knowing that Jack Devine is going to have a full speed to the net and trying to bounce something off there, and then for a scoring opportunity. Noah Gregor, when I saw him at times get the puck into the neutral zone, his momentum was already carrying him to the east-west, and he didn't take his stride back to north south for the defenseman of the Nashville Predators to make a hit and then separate the puck. He continued on in a certain angle with his edges in order to gain the zone, which I saw quite a few of that for Noah Gregor. Although it's still going to be difficult for him to make the team for him on this one. But I do believe that there is something there with Noah Gregor, and that a team will pick him up. Ben Harper, I thought that he was a little too quick to making a touch pass into his own end when there was already a forechecker in on another teammate. He tried a quick touch to Tyler Mott, who was already in the low slot near his own goaltender, and that created a high danger chance opportunity. So a little careless with the puck at times from Ben Harper, who's also on a PTO. But Panthers got 2 goals in the third period, like I mentioned earlier, from Mike Benning, who the first one, it was activated. He was activating in the offense after a puck was deflected off of Nolan Foote, and then he was right there, got behind the defense, and then knocked it in. And also quick to nail that clapper through a screen to make it 4-3. So I think whenever you see Mike Benning, I mean, he's a 2-time NCAA champion with the University of Denver, already has a full season in the AHL. He's really, truly grown since the last time that I saw him in some game action. So it's a big sign of growth. And you look at the Panthers and signing Jeff Petry, a more offensively based defenseman, more reliant on his skating, that maybe that's the kind of player Mike Benning. If you're looking at Mike Benning, you look at Jeff Petry, it's like, you see that guy who could handle the puck. Maybe that's the guy that Mike Benning could somewhat emulate when it comes to how he wants to get to that next level, which I do believe that he truly has a chance to get there as well. So there's going to be a lot of competition, and that's why, once again, that you put things on hold when it comes to possible extensions of Nico Mikkola, because the fact that the Panthers, in their next life cycle in this contention window, they're going to have to bank on guys on entry-level deals, or even Benning's no longer on his entry-level deal. He signed a deal after his most recent one, but on the cheaper contract deals that are less than $1 million. So that's why you hold on the negotiations, and you wait until where the cap is going to be, and then make a decision from there, because I do believe that the Panthers pipeline, as far as defense, I know that Mike Benning is a right-handed shot, Nico Mikkola is a left-handed shot, but I do believe that there is that chance for guys to eventually graduate up from Charlotte to the NHL. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss what Jeff Petry and Luke Kunin had to say in their Friday media availabilities during after practice, even though they did not take the ice themselves. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, with an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, so they put off organizing your finances. Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, and you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NHL at Monarch Money in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code Locked On NHL. Segment number 2 here on this Monday, September 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And happy first day of fall to everybody out there. And we're truly transitioning into the closer to getting to the first game of the season. So the fact that the Panthers were back in a hockey setting is just great to hear. And I apologize to those people who looked forward to this preseason game and were unable to, due to the regional rules that the NHL has when it comes to watching games on certain teams' websites. As I know that for FloridaPanthers.com for today's game, it was only the South Florida region only that was able to watch it. And I personally use a VPN as someone outside of the region in order to get the game for today. So it was a little bit of a struggle, but I found a way. And apologies to the people who weren't able to watch the game today. But let's discuss the media availabilities between Luke Kunin and Jeff Petry. We talked about one newcomer for the Florida Panthers in Danilo Tarasov and how he played, which we spoke about even that just a few days ago on Fairbanks Friday, what he had to say about just the opportunity to play with Sergei Bobrovsky again. But these are the three additions: Kunin, Petry, Tarasov. Not a lot of turnover for the Panthers, and that's great whenever you look at a Stanley Cup champion that won as convincingly as they did it for their second straight and an opportunity to get a third one. Because, and you look at the profile, the years under their belt that both of these two players have, which Jeff Petry is on in his late 30s, 37 years old. And when you think of the contract that was even offered to him by Bill Zito with the veteran minimum and then up to $300K in bonus, when you think about it, with the rise in cap getting to 104 come next season, at least that's the minimum, you think that, that's it, 50K for each milestone, because you look at the ones that he could get. So it's 50K for 20 games played, 30 games played, 40, 50, and then one for advancing a few rounds, and then a 50K bonus for winning the Stanley Cup. And those bonuses would go on next year's cap, which the Panthers, as far as bonuses and buyouts, all of that part is clean, which is the great thing about the Panthers being able to bring a majority of their roster back to begin with, which is the great thing about that part is behind them, at least for now. But assuming that Petry is going to play a lot of games, be the quarterback on power play too, you assume that you're going to be paying up those bonuses, and the Panthers will be more than happy to pay up those bonuses. And by the way, the fact that they didn't put a certain amount of players that are actually on the current that are actually going to make the Panthers roster, the Predators broadcast did actually mention that there could possibly be a fine for the Panthers, and I assume that Vinny Viola is more than happy to pay for that. But as far as what Jeff Petry said when he met with the media on Friday, he spoke about just the overall culture of the Panthers, about how it's an environment where everybody cares about everybody, and that it's not me over the team. It's the team first, and then you are going to come here and be part of doing your role and what you need to do, whether it's you're playing 12 minutes a night or you're logging 25, 26 minutes a night, somewhat in that area, where we've seen Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad do so many times, especially Aaron Ekblad, with the fact that he plays power play, even strength, and penalty kill for the Panthers. Jeff Petry is going to be playing some of that role on the penalty kill and power play too. So he's going to be up there and towards the tops as far as time on ice guys for the Panthers. It might not be at 5-on-5 necessarily. It might be a situation where he might have to move up one spot in the case of an injury. And the thing is, the thing about Jeff Petry being a right-handed shot for the Panthers is you would see in other years, because Kulikov is a left-handed shot, he would play on his offside, either go back to his strong side, or have him move up in the lineup and play with Nico Mikkola. But the fact that you have that right-handed shot defenseman, I don't know if it's automatic that he would be the guy to move up, but I'm sure that Paul Maurice would probably feel a little comfortable trying to move him up in the case of an injury situation for the Panthers. So that's also but again, it's not someone that you want to be there in an 82 game stretch for a long period of time. It's only something temporary that you would want to see out of Jeff Petry. And also what Petry also spoke most to the Panthers culture is that the group is just never satisfied, and he spoke about how it's not enjoyable to play against them, and he's happy to truly be on the other side of it. So that's also encouraging to see whenever it came to what Petry had to say, that it's not, whenever the Panthers are going on their forecheck, and with how so many hard-hitting power forwards that they have, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, you name it, for what the Panthers bring. and especially all their bottom six grinders that they have too, like AJ Greer, in the past Ryan Lomberg, and a guy who's even coming into the mix this year, and Luke Kunin, who could play both wing and center, and brings a little bit of that sandpaper to them. And here's a great way to transition to Luke Kunin. He spoke about how there wasn't much thought when Bill Zito called, because of the fact that Zito was Kunin's agent at the beginning of his career, and also Kunin grew up with Matthew Tkachuk, so it's easy to think why Luke Kunin, where possibly Luke Kunin learned that, as far as playing on the same line with Tkachuk back in his youth. And maybe and the fact is, once again, a double-digit goal scorer, that is a higher upside, and that brings the fourth line a little bit of a higher level than what we've seen in years past. And again, he mentioned playing with that edge and the similarities, and I just think that when you look at that, plus what's going on with Tomáš Nosek and his injury, I think that it's a good opportunity for Luke Kunin in the beginning of this season to really make a true presence in this Panthers lineup. I mean, if there was a healthy Tomáš Nosek, you're looking at opening night where where Kunin is a scratch, and then you have to honor the guys who got the Stanley Cup in as far as playing them for the first game of the season, see the banner raise, and then get in right on the action for the game, which we saw that with Nate Schmidt being a scratch in the first game, and then right away he's in the lineup in game number 2, but also opportunistic last year because of Adam Boqvist getting hit in the face with a puck. But you're gonna see probably that same thing this year, where Uvis is probably gonna take game 1 and then look for the rest of the way for Jeff Petry to get into the lineup for the Panthers, and also work on as far as working on the Panthers being a better breakout team, especially if he were to skate out on his own, which the Panthers are more of that team who gets that quick first pass out. How is Jeff Petry going to play that part of his game when it comes to the Panthers, especially in their D zone? But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to be joined by Alex Donno of Locked On Canes and the Florida Panthers Radio Network to discuss the Panthers forward Matthew Tkachuk joining ESPN's College Gameday on Saturday. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on the fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, third and final segment here on this Monday, September 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Armando Velez, joined by Alex Donno of Locked On Canes, and occasionally on the Florida Panthers Radio Network, discussing things Florida Panthers hockey on WQAM. And today, Donno is joining me on this segment to discuss Matthew Tkachuk's appearance on College Gameday and his picks from that. But first of all, Alex, welcome to the show. Congratulations to the Canes on getting a big win over the University of Florida this past weekend at Hard Rock Stadium, my friend.
Thank you, Armando. It was an electric atmosphere, not only at Hard Rock Stadium, but College Gameday, being on campus on Saturday, and they were out there Friday as well. The Pat McAfee show was live on campus. It was an electric 48 hours in South Florida in anticipation of that game against the Gators. So it was really a great weekend. I think everybody down there had an awesome time.
Yeah, and you think it's crazy because this is a collaboration for this segment on the two greatest teams currently in the South Florida landscape, with the University of Miami now currently undefeated, now number 2 in the AP poll, and the Florida Panthers coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. And the guest picker for College Gameday this weekend was Matthew Tkachuk, the first ever NHL player to be a guest picker. But also the fact is that Matthew Tkachuk not afraid of the spotlight, and then putting that on display for one of the biggest programs in television when it comes to just the pregame show. I know there's Sunday NFL Countdown and everything else on ESPN, but Matthew Tkachuk's been on TNT and now getting this for College Gameday, and also more importantly, how we as South Floridians also connect with this, that this is on a national stage. It's just outstanding.
Well, and I think it was really a great capitalization by ESPN to have Matthew Tkachuk on, just to really tie things together in South Florida sports. And you mentioned, two most successful sports teams. I mean, the Panthers are on their own at the top right now, coming off 2 straight Stanley Cups. But, the Miami Hurricanes are certainly playing great football. But for ESPN to realize that, hey, we can capitalize on the fact that within that same city, you've got a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champ and a guy that they know, Matthew Tkachuk, he has charisma. They know he speaks well. He knows how to entertain a crowd. I mean, he was getting that crowd going on campus when he was talking a little smack about Florida State, who Miami's going to see in a couple weeks. So Tkachuk knew how to play up to that crowd. And I thought, and I didn't even realize until you said it, that he's the first ever NHL player to be a guest picker on College Gameday. ESPN struck while the iron was hot. And I've got to say that I think Chucky won over a lot of Miami Hurricanes fans who had a little bit of it's reservations about him being the guest picker. And I'll explain why. I think Miami fans, myself included, and I love the Panthers as well, Armando, you know that. But I was just kind of thinking, okay, if you're thinking about who the guest picker might be, maybe somebody who's a celebrity who also has like direct ties to the University of Miami. Of course, The Rock is number one on everybody's list. He's been a guest picker on Game Day before. I think most recently he did it for Colorado, though, which is kind of icky. Maybe eventually he'll do it again for Miami. But, Danny Ramirez from the Marvel movies, who's a big University of Miami fan. So I think Hurricanes football fans were expecting like a certain type of celebrity to be the guest picker. And so when Matthew Tkachuk was announced, I think there was a little bit of like surprise, like, okay, it's a little out of left field. I don't know if that's exactly what we wanted. But then the more I thought about it leading up until Saturday, for all the reasons I stated about, Chucky being charismatic and being an important part of the best team in the NHL right now, a team that's working on building a dynasty within this community, I think not only was he a good choice considering those factors, but he also absolutely nailed it to the point where I don't know if they've ever had a guest picker who had as many notes as Matthew Tkachuk. Like, I mean, this is a guy who pays millions of dollars. He gets paid millions of dollars to play hockey. But I don't know. I don't think College Gameday paid him anything. But he had his notes like he was making a 7-figure salary like Nick Saban or Pat McAfee out there. He was uber prepared for it. He was wearing Miami Hurricanes gear. And something that I've understood about Tkachuk since he's been with the Florida Panthers is he's really embraced the local sports scene, and he has been rooting for the University of Miami. So it's not as if, he woke up Saturday morning, he's like, gosh, never watched college football before. Let me figure out what to say about Matthew Tkachuk has been fully ingrained in the sports community down here, and he knows Hurricanes football. And I thought it was really cool. Again, as someone who I obviously love the Miami Hurricanes and I obviously love the Florida Panthers, to see my worlds collide with Matthew Tkachuk, I thought it was really neat.
No doubt. And Matthew Tkachuk getting introduced with Panthers Pulse playing in the background, and then talking about how this is the first time that he had done homework since he was in the 9th grade. Nice little joke that he put there right before making his actual picks. But yeah, lots of notes, and then the reaction to Pat McAfee jumping into the pool later as well. So that was a little funny of what McAfee also pulled there. But no Stanley Cup appearance for College Gameday, but I get it. I kind of get it with the fact that the season is beginning, and the fact is for hockey and wanting to win the cup again. Although, your name is forever ingrained on the world's greatest trophy, I get the mindset of it not being there and it kind of being away, because it's like you want to kind of earn it again, which is kind of the thing that I like when it comes to the mindset of, hey, we still want to have that hunger of trying to accomplish the goal.
I think you make a great point there. The other thought that I had in my head, but I hadn't considered what you just said, and I'm superstitious, so I I kind of understand. I know a lot of hockey players are superstitious, but I think my thought on the Cup not making an appearance was, I think that might be maybe a little bit too much of a distraction for what he's there to do, and that's talk college football. Like I think that would have more made the Florida Panthers the story, which I don't really think was the intention. I think Tkachuk, to his credit, really wanted to keep it College Game Day, Miami Hurricanes versus Florida Gators. I think he wanted to keep the focus on that. So that's kind of what I thought, that maybe the Stanley Cup being there would have kind of, made the segment more about that than about the game pick. So I was okay with it for that reason. And honestly, that segment might have been, and I know it's different now that Lee Corso is retired and he's not putting the mascot heads on anymore. But between Tkachuk, he made that one crack about a player who was about to turn 18, like, oh, he can go and have drinks. And they're like, wait, McAfee's like, wait, isn't the drinking age 21? He's like, oh, yeah. Guess that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, he was funny on the show. And then in that same segment is when McAfee, goes and dives off the high board after he picks Miami. Like that was one of the best segments in College Game Day history. Like, I really thought that was an electric segment, and I'm glad Tkachuk could be part of it.
Yeah, and also the fact that College Game Day was on campus in Coral Gables, the fact that the Gators and the Canes don't play every single year, so it was an opportunity for that when they did for bringing College Game Day there, and there might be a chance that College Game Day might be for a matchup in relation to the Canes in a few weeks when they do take on Florida State. Which, as a Florida State fan, I was conflicted when he talked about them winning by 50 so that Miami could beat them. But hey, that's beside. But I digress. But let's go over his picks from College Game Day. He went a total record of 7-3 in his picks. So I'm just gonna list the picks that he said. So in the Brock Lesnar John Cena fight, he picked John Cena. Clemson Syracuse, he picked Q's. He picked Mizzou over South Carolina, Florida State over Kent State, OU over Auburn, TCU over SMU, the Pony Express, Illinois over Indiana, which yikes on that one.
We all got that one wrong. I thought Illinois was going to win too. They got blown out.
He did pick Utah over Texas Tech, which they lost by 24 points, and Michigan over Michigan over Nebraska, and then of course what he was there for, it was given away right before making the pick, the U over the University of Florida. So a record of 7-3. So hey, for maybe he needs to be back there when next time they're back. So so the fact that he did his homework, got those picks right, and hey, got to give a lot of credit for getting those right.
7-3 is pretty darn good. I think on those same picks, just based on who I thought was going to win those games, I probably would have gone 6-4, maybe 5-5. So yeah. Chucky did a good job, and I don't think he did any worse than anybody else on the panel. I think they all missed on Utah. They thought Utah was going to beat Texas Tech. I think most of them missed on Indiana over Illinois, and I don't know how much stock I put in Brock Lesnar or John Cena. I'm pretty sure pro wrestling is scripted, so I don't know how much value there is in picking those winners. But I thought Tkachuk did really well. Yeah, and listen, Tkachuk grew up in the U.S. He born in Arizona, raised in Missouri. Of course, he was going to go with the hometown team in home state team in Mizzou. And listen, he had 2 consecutive years of taking a picture with the Heisman Trophy from 2000 when Chris Weinke won it. So he might know a little bit more college football than he is probably saying. So, and he's probably maybe paid attention to maybe the fact that Dabo Swinney has also been a little bit of a tyrant maybe lately in his media availabilities, and it's not looking so great for Clemson. As by the way, how good is that for us? I mean, you're a Florida State guy, I'm a Miami guy. I think we're enjoying the Clemson demise a little bit, you and me.
Just a little bit. Just I'm enjoying quite a lot, actually. But Donno, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody quickly where they can follow you and your work online, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. You know I love what you do, Armando. And yeah, I'm part of this network and proud to be. You can find me at Locked On Canes, talking Miami Hurricanes sports, and also Locked On ACC, talking all things ACC. You know, on Monday, we're going to be talking about Dabo Swinney melting down. That's going to be a big topic. So find me there, and make sure you guys keep supporting Locked On Florida Panthers, because Armando has been crushing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donno.